It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday. And this is actually a more pleasant Feedback Friday to do. It's going to be less about reading individual comments and more about the establishment of blessed consensus, which is really nice. Consensus is rare on the thornier issues in video games. So it's really nice when we get some consensus. And if you like this sort of thing, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I was really surprised at how positive the response was, not only to the Critical Theory video, but also the Mortal Kombat video. I thought those were going to be kind of contentious. They weren't. That tells me a lot because they could have been. I think that maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, they could have been. And yes, you get into sample bias and, all that stuff. Some people had like sort of, different bends on critical theory, but essentially critical theory is not an effective lens to use with video games for, various reasons. First and foremost, that it is not like, it is not like, say, becoming a lawyer or becoming a judge, where a government basically has to either grant you certification, which means you have to get accepted into certain schools and, kiss certain asses to get certain recommendations to get in certain, tightly controlled appointed seats or elected seats, depending on whether, you're a lawyer or a judge, sheriff, whatever. That's a totally different thing where you can get into like, systemic oppression and barriers to access and all this stuff. But with games, I mean, download Unity, fart around, figure it out, watch YouTube videos, teach yourself, put your game out there. And if people like it, awesome. There's a whole bunch of other things that stop people from doing that, which are very real. But I'm going to talk a bit more about that stuff next week. I'm going to probably pre-record a bunch of it tonight because the sooner I get content together these days, the better. But then with the Mortal Kombat thing, there was another shocking consensus, and shocking in a good way. I was really surprised how many people kind of agreed that it's not about the costumes per se, whether we like them or don't like them. It's not about that. There was a pedantic moral judgment made about the old costumes and a clear omission of a particular character, Mileena, that they couldn't nerf because they knew fans would essentially go crazy about it. And then after they made such a big deal about the more respectful costumes, they brought back the old, Mortal Kombat 3 pack costumes for an additional fee. So they scolded the fans and then brought back the things that fans want. And then they did it again with, no, Mileena won't be in Mortal Kombat 11. She won't be. And then, I find the costume ridiculous. Other people don't mind it. But, other people said it's not just about the costume per se. It's about Mileena's character and certain things where if you take that away from her, she's not Mileena. And I mean, one of those things was her sexuality. And that's always been the thing about Mileena, right? Like the whole thing about taking off the big like the kiss thing and everything like that, right? Like that is the venom tongue sometimes. That's an intrinsic part of the character. You stop including that in her. That means she's, no longer she's just kind of a Mileena cosplayer. She's not Mileena anymore. And I can get into like my fan headcanon and everything like that. I'll save you guys that because personal. But I mean, I don't know if NetherRealm Studios was forced into the original position by Warner Brothers. If they did, it was terrible. The only reason I don't believe that is so is because the source of the comment about more respectful costumes was not from a marketing person. It was from the art director of the game. And I suspect that the guy said that because it was Polygon and he was pandering a bit. And when that didn't go the way they thought it would with the people who actually buy their game, like many companies and individuals in gaming, instead of going, you know what, I screwed up, that came out wrong, or that is not what I meant, this is what I meant, they just said nothing and hoped it would go away. The problem is then everything they did subsequent to that just made that comment seem really stupid, and a bunch of people are like, what's going on? You can't have fun. At least I can't have fun with something when I feel like when I feel like the creators of the product are going, here, you dirty little pervert. It's like, that's not fun anymore. Like, this is a game where people are getting their heads ripped off and their spines broken. And I admit, I know those X-ray things with Mortal Kombat are, I guess they're popular. They always confuse me. I don't like the X-ray because it's like their spine is broken. How are they standing? You can't stand when your spine is broken. I do prefer the more cartoony, the cartoony elements of Mortal Kombat. When they try to be realistic, I'm just like, this is insulting my intelligence. I think that's why I've sort of moved into more surrealist as opposed to realistic violent games, like God of War, or the stupidity of like, opening a monster's head like a can and then stabbing them in the brain. Like, it's dumb, right? But it's sort of not insulting my intelligence dumb, as opposed to, wait, you're making me think way too hard about this kind of dumb. And it just seems like, Mortal Kombat is kind of circling the bowl in an uncanny valley of, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a ridiculous, brainless gore fest that sort of is an homage to semi-bad action movies and, wushu martial arts films? Or are you trying to make this realistic thing? Why would you want to make a realistic thing of this type, right? But again, this is, I refer a lot to people in the industry like smelling their own farts. I appreciate the people that enjoyed my coining of the term Yankee-splaining for things. And I do think this ties in some ways, because the thing I love about video games, one of the things I love, is that it is truly an international art form. I'm very excited that, Spain's coming up in game dev, and Poland is coming up in game dev, and Canada has a lot of game development studios, and obviously the US and Japan and the UK and France, and it isn't like Hollywood and Bollywood and that's it, or it isn't like New York and like West End London, right? For theater, it isn't like, the Met and a few places in Europe for opera. It's democratized, right? Because everything's digital downloads now, you don't even have to worry about like shipping to other places. It's just bloop, it's up there on Steam or on some sort of console store, and Bob's your uncle, you're off to the races. it's really fun to collaborate with people all over the world, getting up early for time zones aside. It's really cool to get such a diverse lens on art and how to make art. And I'm really enjoying that aspects of game dev. You know, that's the thing. Like there are a lot of things about game dev that are really, really hard. But it's a fun hard, you know? It's how do I solve this problem hard instead of whose egos are clashing hard in a well-run place, right? I'm not saying there are no egos anywhere in gaming. Oh God, no. I wish that the conversations being had about games through the games press were as positive and collaborative as the conversations that happen in game dev when it's done well. Like being in both places right now, the difference is so stark. And there's absolutely no reason why there can't be a more collaborative feeling within gaming. It's not gaming. It's politics spilling into gaming, you know, hence me talking about on Tuesday kind of what's been happening on Twitter. It's ugly and it's stupid. And to me, who isn't an American, it all feels extremely pointless. Like screaming at people over politics, calling them liars and this, that, and the next thing. It does not make any legislation get passed. It doesn't lower or raise anyone's taxes. It doesn't improve or make worse health care. It doesn't raise or lower the cost of college. All it is screaming. It just seems like people are just so beaten down. They don't see any hope that they can be a positive force in society. And so they just want to beat on people on Twitter, which is ridiculous. But that's the world we live in. And I'm going to touch kind of more on this next week because you guys notice I didn't do Twitch at all this week. I didn't do it last week. I am just so not... One, I'm not in the mood to talk politics. Because I really, really like everybody that is a regular on the Twitch channel. And I know that people have very strong political views on things. I want people to be able to have those political views. Now, some of those political views do not agree. And sometimes people clash. And I don't want to see that. It makes me sad because I watch one person who I know is a good person fighting with another person who I know is a good person. And they both think the other person is a bad person by the end of the fight. And when I'm playing video games, I can't sit there and just moderate that. Possibly an alternative to just chatting. Like if there is an interest in that, I can do just chatting Twitches. So I'm not playing a game. The whole point is political catharsis. People show up and all I do is moderate. All I do is moderate so that people can just get stuff off their chest. I'm good to do that. Okay? It's a change in format, but I'm totally good to do that. If you guys are interested in that. And I know this is not the Twitch audience, this is the YouTube audience, but maybe I'll try that next week. This seems like a way back to Twitch that kind of solves the problem of if politics is the thing everybody has to talk about, then I can't have my attention on anything else because productive conversation, first and foremost, is the most important thing. And that's sort of where I wanna sort of stress. How do I put this? This is gonna be emotional, okay? And pause for a Snorlax mouse pad. This makes me like ridiculously happy. Every time I look down and see Snorlax's little butt boobs, and then somebody says make him twerk, And then I actually pick him up and it's like twerk, 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 twerk. A wild Snorlax appears. It's twerky effective. Yeah, this is what I do when I'm trying to write game dialogue. I know that we don't know each other personally, like if you're a regular of this channel. But because I read your comments and I see how much you care about stuff and how much you really put the effort in to trying to have a discussion, those are marks of good people. Not perfect people. And I think that we live in a world where we are too focused on flaws of everything. To an extent, that's because people want to make things better. People want to constantly improve. But I really believe that if all you hear is criticism, you know where not to go, but you don't know in which direction you can move, right? And being exposed to the absolute bonkers insanity that is U.S. political discourse right now. I mean, the last election, one major party candidate, it turned out he was using donor money to pay for his kid's private school. The prime minister, it turned out, did blackface years ago. And there were a bunch of other like really weird things. Another major party leader potentially showed up drunk somewhere. There was all this other stuff, Photoshop coffee cups with the Green Party because it was a disposable, like it was crazy, but it never got as vitriolic as the US. And it's funny because now we're not in an election cycle and things are still more vitriolic in Canadian politics, I think because certain social media teams are trying to capture eyeballs from the crap that's going on in the US. But I see now the fact that we can, discuss things like critical theory and gender and race, all that stuff in games. That's you guys, right? Like, I can't force you to leave good comments. And so I want to provide a good user experience. And I guess because there is so much negativity out there, and I know a lot of people are sort of despairing and feeling afraid and feeling lost, maybe just a simple I see you and I see the good. Like maybe that's every time somebody brings up a good point I hadn't thought of, every time somebody sort of, corrects me nicely, every time somebody disagrees in a way that's, useful and productive and I can learn from, that's precious. And I just want to be clear that I appreciate that. Because I don't get the sense that a lot of people are hearing, I appreciate that and I appreciate you lately. And so I'm doing a little bit of something to try to correct that. Okay? One last detail. I am probably going to be doing a live stream next week at some point with Rich from Review Tech USA, the Rich and Red reunion. I will let you guys know when we set that, because that should be fun. I like Rich a lot, and those are always fun chats. So that's coming up. That's a good thing. So if you like this sort of stuff, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. And no matter what, thanks for watching.